Welcome to the Appetite for Discussion show with your host, Brandon Crouch.
Hey, Mr. Andrew Donawa. See there. And you guys had no faith that I would get that correct.
Yep. I was just going to sit there and look at him.
And also Mr. Hayden Breece.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thanks for the invite.
So you guys are doing something that is very important to the community and very important for our emergency services people here in Iredell County. And I first heard about kind of what you guys are doing months and months ago, and I thought that was really interesting. I reached out to you about coming on the show and talking about it and spreading the word. So could you explain a little bit exactly what it is what you do and what you guys are offering? Because it's not just one thing either, right?
Yeah, so I'm the emergency management chaplain for Iredell County. So I go from police, fire, medical, and provide all their chaplaincy services for them. And a couple years ago, I decided that I wanted to start a nonprofit, and I kept talking about it, and I never did. And so one day, actually, it's been a year and 4 or 5 months now, I started First Responder Support Services, which incorporates chaplaincy services, financial crisis, and counseling, free counseling for all first responders. So that's police, fire, medical, telecommunicators, you name it, they get it.
And so this started about you said a year and a half ago?
Yep, almost a year and a half ago.
And how has the program been accepted or grown?
So the hard part is that a lot of people knew me, Andrew, as the chaplain, but they didn't really quite get at first what First Responder Support Services was. It was like, is that a part of you or is that somebody else? What's going on kind of thing. So at first we had a little rocky start, but now it's moving full flow. I mean, it's running itself pretty much. We have first responders calling us all the time. I have five chaplains.
When you said they call you, what do they call you for? What do they need?
Well, it depends. So a first responder might be calling just to talk, or they might be calling to say, hey, did you hear that so-and-so ran a bad call? And that they're kind of struggling with it. And I'm like, no, I hadn't heard that yet. Because some calls I either go to the call if it sounds bad, or I won't go and I'll reach out to the supervisor of whoever the person it is that ran the call.
So for those who are listening at home and they don't have a medical background or emergency services background, when you say a call, what do you mean? Explain that to them.
So in emergency services, we say a call as in, so you call 911, you have whatever your emergency is, the telecommunicators are transferring this call that you've called on to the emergency service personnel. So we call it a call, but and honestly, it could be an incident, an accident, a domestic dispute. I mean, there's all different kinds of names for what an emergency service call would look like, but we usually just call it a call.
I gotcha. Okay. And so when someone has either had a tough call, like they've been on the scene of something or taking care of someone, whatever it may be, if they're having a tough time, coping, they can give you guys a call.
Mm-hmm. And so most of the time we try to get ahead of that kind of stuff too. So let's say, for instance, we had a pediatric CPR call, and we sadly didn't get the baby back. I try to get ahead of that game and say, hey, I'm here if you need me. You want to reach out? And they're like, okay. Or we have another route where the supervisor or the director of the agency or the chief, whoever it may be, will call and say, hey, Andrew, we want to set up a a crisis incident debriefing. So that saying is, we go in and all the first responders that were on the scene, they go in, they sit in a room in a circle. And then there's crisis debriefers that come in, and there's 3. There's your peer person, which is a person that's just there if somebody leaves the room and they just can't handle what's all going on in there. You have your educator, which is the one that tells you all the facts and stuff that happened throughout the call or throughout what's going to happen with you in the next couple of weeks from running this bad call. And then you have your lead person who makes sure that the flow of the group goes well. So there's 2 ways that we really try to get out there and be proactive and reactive on stuff like that.
It's interesting because I don't think there's a lot of people who understand, or not even understand, they've just never really thought about what first responders, EMS services, volunteer firemen, police officers, what they actually, some of the horrific things that they see, right? And how they have to digest that, and how they have to process that, and how they have to deal with that. And interestingly enough, same thing for nurses. I worked in the emergency department for almost 8 years, and like you said earlier, pediatrics. If unfortunately someone comes in who's older, and we're doing all the life-saving measures that we could, and unfortunately it just didn't. We weren't able to bring them back. That person passes on. Not that it's easy, but you can look at someone, especially if they're older, and think, well, they've lived a long time. Hopefully, they've had a good life. They've had an opportunity for that. But if a pediatric comes in and things go south, and peds can crash on you quick, no one handles that well. And now that I am a father, how it affected me at 29-year-old Brandon, and then how it would affect 39-year-old Brandon is a totally different animal. And once you have children, it's just different. It opens up so many different emotions. And one thing about being in a hospital and working, let's say for nurses, for example, I think there was a study done at the University of California, San Diego, 2014, that did you know that female nurses have a 58% greater risk of suicide than a general population, and male nurses have a 41% greater risk of suicide than a general population. And it's because of the stressors of the job. If unfortunately, if you're in an emergency department and a situation comes in where it's something horrific or whatnot, unfortunately, you have to deal with that and then move on, because you have 3 to 4 more, 5 more patients that you have to deal with. If you're someone who's in a long-term care facility, or maybe working with oncology, you get adapted. You get you build a relationship with those patients, and then when someone passes, that's tough, and it's hard for people to deal with. And I think that's something that's an aspect of healthcare that people don't think about. And they don't know about it.
Well, I think a lot of people think on the healthcare side of it, or in general, like first responders, police officers, everybody, they think that, oh, you're a firefighter or a paramedic or a police officer, that you're a superhero. And in my eyes, all the first responders are superheroes, but we're not invincible.
Right.
And what a lot of people run into is that you have this bad code call, or you might have where grandma fell and it's really bothering somebody because their grandmother's that same age.
Exactly.
Or something like that. And people think, oh, they run those calls every day. It's fine. They shouldn't be upset over it. And it's like, these calls, if you're running them in and day out, it's chronic pain and all this stress, and it builds up. And that's what a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, it's true. And you also don't realize how numb you get to things. Things that not probably, but things that bother the regular person doesn't bother you.
Yeah.
My wife, when we first, got married and stuff, she's like, "You're so cold." It's like, it's not cold. It's a defense mechanism. You can't allow yourself to be or feel a certain way, or it's going to affect your job and how you perform. So it's just the way that you either have to be that way, or you might have to go find just a different arena to go work in. And that's the one nice thing about working in healthcare, is there are different avenues that you can go work in.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that. Well, not funny, but I was at a conference last week, and in one of my classes I went to, it was called First Responder Relations, and there was a captain from the Highway Patrol leading the class, and he was telling a story about how he was married before and how he's married now, and he says, "I love my wife now. We have 3 great kids," so on and so forth. And he was like, "But I want to talk about how I got promoted from the patrol to a sergeant." Well, when I got promoted as a sergeant, he said he got transferred all the way to Raleigh. He was living all the way at the furthest part of the coast, pretty much. And so he talked to his wife that he was married to at the time, and she said, "It's fine. We'll make it work. We'll live here." And he would drive down there for a week. He'd stay from Monday to Friday, and then he'd drive home for the weekends.
Yep.
Well, he said that he was driving home. He would drive home every weekend, and every day, the days that he would come home, she was standing there waiting in the driveway for him. And it was one of those things where it was like that, so on and so forth, keep going, keep going. Well, eventually he said he realized that she wasn't in the driveway anymore. And then it came to the point to where she wasn't at the house anymore. And then it came to the point where she wasn't talking to him as much anymore. And I was like, gosh, this is crazy to think this. And then he was like, well, I come home one day and she's crying at the computer. And he asked, well, what's going on? And she's like, I'm not happy anymore. And he's like, okay, well, why? Well, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want you to be all the way there, so on and so forth. She had started talking or dating somebody else, whatever it may be. And so he's like, okay, well, I can ask the patrol to see if I can find a place closer to home so we can be together more. And she's like, no, I don't want that. And then it was, okay, he gave her 3 options. He said, okay, I can move closer to home, I can quit my job, or I can quit my job and become a police officer here. And she said, no, I don't want that. And so he asked straight up, and it's a defense mechanism. He said he was hurting. He said, but he asked straight up, okay, do you want the house or do you want money? And it's one of those things where he was like, I'm not trying to be a butt about it.
Right.
It's just I'm hurting. I've
Right.
wanted to give you my life. I'm willing to give up everything for you.
Yep.
And you left. And it was like, do you want the house or the money? And he was like, I wasn't doing it to be a butt. He said, I was doing it because that was a defense mechanism for me. So that's a defense mechanism for police officers. And a lot of people don't realize when you get in a relationship with a police officer, you're taking that relationship on as they are a police officer, and they're going to have defense tactics up 99% of the time.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough thing, right? Marrying
Yeah.
someone who is in law enforcement, either with the troopers, or sheriff's department, police department. It has to take a special person, man or woman, to marry someone who is, committed and married to that job.
Oh yeah, and it does, because I talk to a lot of ladies that are married to police officers, and they tell me it's like, it takes a real special person to marry a police officer. And I have a lot of great friends that are cops, and they're hilarious, and we all have that dry sense of humor. But on the serious note, what a lot of people I've talked to here lately have said was, when Officer Sheldon died in Mooresville, I had a lot of wives call me and say, I don't want my husband to go back to work.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because it was like, he got shot. Jordan got shot in Mooresville, and nobody would have ever thought it would have happened. And so that was a thing where it was like, he's not going to go back to work. I'm telling you, me and him, we've already argued about it. He's not going back. Or I had the wife that's like, well, I'm fine with him going back to work, but I want him to work days. I don't want him to work nights. And it's like, they don't really get that option.
No.
They do, but they don't. It depends if you have kids or if you're married, how long you've been on the department. So it was a lot of stressors there. And then you have some kids that would call me and say, I don't want my daddy to go back to work because I knew Jordan, or I knew Officer Sheldon, and he came over to our house all the time and hung out and was in the pool or whatever it may be. And it's like, that's really tough to think, gosh, this cop went to work and thought he was coming home. Just like I go to work every day and I'm thinking I'm going to come home every day. Just like the firefighters go to work every day and they're like, we're going to go home every day. You don't expect to die. You don't think about dying.
No.
And especially not here. I'll be honest with you. I've worked a lot of line of duty deaths across the state. And the night that I got that phone call that Officer Sheldon had been shot, my heart dropped. I get phone calls like that all the time, that officers have been shot or officers have been shot or been hurt. And it was like, where at? And they're like, Mooresville. And I was like, Mooresville, North Carolina? As in like 30 minutes from us? And it's like, yeah. And so I called the Mooresville Chaplain, and I headed that way, and I'm still thinking in my head, like, this isn't real. This isn't going to happen in Mooresville. And so to go back to the police thing is, you got to have a significant other that is really special and really loves you and devoted to what you're doing to be a first responder's wife or husband, whatever it may be. Because if you don't, y'all ain't going to make it. I'll be straight up with you, be honest with you. There's 100%. A huge divorce rate in first responders. And it's sad that there's a divorce rate. It's just because they have defense mechanisms and dry sense of humor that they have to have to cope with whatever they're dealing with at work or at home.
Right.
I'd like to add something. What I see, I'm on the outside. I've only been on this for about 9 months, 10 months with Andrew. But I'm a Vietnam vet. And
thank you for your service.
Most people understand military. But what they don't understand is that the police department, the fire department, the EMT, not going out to war, but they are going out and their lives could be lost. And a lot of people aren't understanding that's what's happening. They just think, oh, they're cops, they deal with it. They're a firefighter, they deal with it. They're an EMT, they deal with it. But it's the same environment as if somebody goes into a combat zone. That police officer could be under fire for hours. That firefighter could be in fire for hours. That EMT could be working for hours trying to save lives. So it's the same thing, but I think what I've seen in the community is people don't relate it the same way. They
Right.
see it in a different way. That's what I think people need to start realizing is that these guys are not at war, but they are out protecting and putting their lives on the line. That's what I see that we're working to get better at, that we can make people understand these guys are out there to protect us, and they're actually putting their life on the line. Whether you go into a fire, whether you go into as an EMT, you don't know what
Right.
might be around that door. There might be a crazy person.
And the guys are doing it because they love it and they want to help
Right.
people, and they're not doing it for the money.
That's right.
That's 100% true.
Yeah, they're not doing it for the money at all. It's just one of those things of like, I don't know. The best way to explain it, I think, is there's so many little stressors that get people and when you're in emergency services. Like, for example, me driving the ambulance the other day, emergency traffic to Baptist. Well, if anybody is from around here, you know that Baptist right now is or I-40 is under construction once you get to Moxville. And so it was one of those things is we got a patient in the back of the ambulance. They're working as hard as they can to save this patient's life. I'm driving emergency traffic to Baptist, and you have that one car cut out in front of you, or you have people slamming on brakes. And those are such high stressors because if I slam on the brakes, they're getting thrown around in the back.
Yep.
And that doesn't need to happen for a trauma patient in the back, and anybody in the medical field knows that. Or you have people cutting out in front of you, or you have like one of the things that stressed me out was the traffic going down there, people slamming on their brakes, people cutting out in front of you, or I'm going the allotted speed that I'm allowed to go during emergency traffic, and you have a car flying past you to cut you off, and it's like,
Yeah, public service announcement. People, when you see the ambulance, pull over, slide over. And if they're on the interstate, guess what? They're not going to Krispy Kreme.
Yeah.
Okay? They're going somewhere to either go help one or to go get someone a higher level of care. Okay? So move. I promise you, wherever you're going is not as important at the moment. So just get out of the way.
yeah,
I drive every day on I-77, and it is, how people don't have more road rage. I mean, there's enough as there is, but how they don't have more. That is a totally different show.
yeah.
So now, you're the chaplain, but do you also work a truck? Do you?
No, so
Okay.
I don't anymore. I started out as a volunteer at the rescue squad and worked my way through the ranks, and got employed, and now I do the chaplaincy work.
Okay.
So, but I do go to the bad calls.
Okay.
So I'm still on the rescue squad. So let's say, for instance, we had a bad car accident right here at Center Street, and they're on scene for an extended amount of time. And let's say we extricate this person, and we're not going to fly because whatever reasons there is. And it's easier for me to say, hey, I'll drive you,
Right.
than to pull somebody off of another ambulance, to pull somebody off the rescue truck, or to pull somebody out of the fire truck to shorten that crew, or to pull the supervisor off the truck to drive them emergency traffic because they need so many people in the back. And so I'll say, I'll drive you, so they don't have to have that extra stress. So that's just one of the things that I feel that I'm doing as the chaplain, and is to take that stress away. And it's not that all my chaplains are doing it, because there's only 2 people certified to drive emergency traffic that are chaplains.
Gotcha.
With us, and he is David Barlow is one of my chaplains, but he's been in the fire service for 40 years.
Okay.
So we have all the training and stuff to drive emergency traffic, just like a paramedic would, so on and so forth. I have my EMT. I just don't practice with it as much because I'm providing the chaplaincy services.
So how big of a reach do you have? Do you just service Iredell County?
So for the nonprofit only services Iredell County.
Okay.
But there is the TRAC division, which is Triad Regional Preparedness and Health, which is ran through Baptist Hospital, which is for every EMS agency and every hospital on this side of what encompasses 18 counties, and I can't remember all 18 right now. But we're part of Baptist healthcare system.
Okay.
And Lake Norman is a part of the Metrolina system. So that's CMC's healthcare system. So Iredell County is so big that we're divided into 2 different systems that have 2 different trauma centers in it.
Right.
Because most places in the state, They most of the time only have one trauma center. But we have two, so we're divided half and half, the TRAC and the Metrolina, and I'm a part of both. And we have crisis intervention teams that are there. We have SMAT teams, so that's state medical assistance teams. So if there was a disaster or something like that. But
before you were licensed or were able to work both, could you cross that line if they needed you? Well, the imaginary line. Let's say that you were with Metrolina first, and then Baptist. There was a horrible accident up in Moxville or whatever. Would you be able to have? Could you have went and helped? Okay, that's good.
It's just like
I was wondering.
MOUs.
Hopefully, it wasn't too political or like, nope, can't cross that line. You can't give us help.
Yeah. So
we have no one.
we can't help you.
No.
But for the most part, so like I said, the TRAC division, which I work with more than I do the Metrolina, it's just because the Metrolina is a little more developed because Charlotte's right there, and there's more paid staff agencies than there is volunteer agencies. So the TRAC division covers 18 counties, and I'm one of the coordinators on that side that help out coordinating stuff and going wherever I need to go throughout the state. For example,
18 counties is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot can happen in one night between 18 counties.
Right now, knock on wood, it's slow. But there's been some times where I get home from one part of the state and I'm getting up the next morning and driving to the next part of the state just because of bad stuff happening. First responder suicide, first responder line of duty death, bad calls, all kinds of stuff. So
is the suicide rate high in emergency services?
Yes, so the suicide rate is higher in emergency service. It's double the average, national average, for just a regular civilian to commit suicide.
Isn't that crazy? I just spouted off that statistic about nursing, and then there's this, about first responders. The people who go out there to help, internalize that, and it's eating them away. And they don't know how to deal with it. But luckily, there's this service that you are providing and you guys are providing that's necessary. Do you know if they're providing something like this in hospitals to healthcare staff, nurses, CNAs, even doctors? Because doctors go through it as well.
They go through it as well. So, for the most part, most people say, "Oh, you got EAP," and that's most
What's
of the
that
thing.
now?
Employee Assistance Program. So you can say, "Hey, you can go to your supervisor," which most medical professionals won't go to their supervisor.
Not a
and
chance.
Say, "Hey, I'm getting bothered by this, so on and so forth. This is going on." And but they won't do it because either their supervisor will say, "Okay, we're going to sit you down for a couple of days, send you home, let me know if you need anything," or they'll say, "Hey, go talk to the hospital chaplain."
Right. Yeah, it's not going to happen. No one's going to go and say that. Number one, they don't want to sound like they're weak or they're cracking up, and they don't want anyone to know about it because then it's going to start not a paper trail, right?
Yeah.
But it could be negatively. People are afraid it could be negatively looked at.
Well, a lot of people are scared, and I'm talking about the public safety side again, but I could imagine this being in the hospital setting too, or the healthcare itself setting, where I know for a fact that if I have a firefighter that says, "Look, I'm really struggling with this," well, let's say I'm riding the truck at a firehouse, and say I'm the new firefighter at the house, and I've never ran a PEDS call before, and we had a bad caller, or I've never ran a bad fire and pulling somebody out. Those guys are experienced. So all y'all are experiencing that. It's like, oh, it's another call. Yeah, it was bad, but shake it off, keep going.
Right.
Or y'all know how to cope with it. Well, me, the new guy, has never ran a call like that. Or me, the new guy, has never experienced anything like that. So what do? I can't talk to my buddies that are on the truck with me because they're going to make fun of me or joke around with me. And it's not that they're going to joke around or make fun of you. It's just that either they're having a hard time coping with it too, or they don't want to bring it up because Hayden or Julius doesn't want to be, they don't want them to know about it either.
Of course. Oh, yeah, sure.
So we got to get out of that old school mentality, because before, in the old school mentality in public safety was shake it off, keep going, we got to run the next call.
That's right.
It was, you didn't have time to cry, you didn't have time to whine about it, you had to go to the next call.
Think about the level of stress paramedics are under in the field. You are the doctor until you get to the hospital with someone. You're making that decision. You're making that life decision call of pushing that drug or whatnot. And that's something that people don't think about. That's do I do this? If I don't do this, this person may die. If I do this, and I'm wrong, this person may die.
Or I know one of the high stressors that I think our paramedics have, and I'll tell you right now, Iredell County's got some of the best paramedics in the state, is discontinuing efforts of CPR. And that's the hard part is that, so let's say we've worked CPR in this room right now for 45 minutes and we've decided to discontinue the efforts. Now I got to go tell that family member standing on the other side of the wall that we're stopping CPR because we've done it for 45 minutes and these are the things that we've done. That's a hard thing for them to make a decision of. And what you'll usually see on those kind of scenes are that there's 10 people in the room doing CPR and you have the one paramedic running the scene, and what'll happen is as CPR is still going on and she feels or he feels that it's not helping anymore, we'll make a group decision. They'll say, okay, have we tried this? Have we pushed bicarb? Have we pushed epi? Have we pushed all these things? And everybody's like, yes. And everybody will say, we'll look at the monitor again. Everybody looks at the monitor, all this stuff, and says, okay, well, it looks like it's not going to happen. We're not going to get the person back. We'll make it a group decision so it's not as much stress on that paramedic or that supervisor, whoever's making that decision, because at the end of the day, it's their decision.
Can I interrupt with a quick story?
Please.
You know, I always got a story.
Well, good, man. I love stories.
But it does involve what you're talking about. I personally had that experience. I had one of my vendors in the flea market have a massive heart attack, and I personally performed CPR on him for about 10 minutes until the emergency responders got here. And I have to say, I was just amazed by the whole process. I mean, it was at least 30, 45 minutes that they worked on him. And I thought, you know, it was a lost cause. And but they kept working on him. I had to notify his wife. The first responders that were there had to talk to his wife and basically tell her that he was gone. And I know the whole experience to me hit me not only mentally but physically. I was sick for about a week after that, just physically, like I'd been in a car wreck. I had a migraine headache to a point that I had to go to the doctor, and they told me it was probably stress related because of the incident. And just gives me a newfound respect for those guys, the first responders. And until you experience something that personally, you don't really understand what these guys go through on a daily basis to have to deal with that kind of stress. I mean, it's just amazing what they go through, and I applaud those guys for everything they do. And you know, that's why I wanted to tell that story, just because until it hits you, you actually hit it. You just don't understand what these
until you
guys
see
are
what
about.
until you see what they do in person and in action, so to speak. It's hard to appreciate and understand what really goes on, and it takes a special person.
The stress level.
I'll never forget my first fatality car accident I went on. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the first time I done CPR. I could tell you exactly where I've done CPR, what medical calls I've ran, and what person I've cut out of a car or whatever it may be, every place in Iredell County. I can tell you now exactly where I've been in the state of where I've done crisis intervention for another department. And it's not that that's hanging on me and it's negative stuff. It's that I remember it and I figured out a way to healthy cope with it. So my healthy coping skill is that I ride the bicycle. So that's one of our things at the nonprofit is we try to teach these first responders, you have to find some type of healthy coping skill. It doesn't have to be going and exercising. That's mine. It might be you playing with your kids every day for 45 minutes before when you get home. I mean, it could be all kinds of stuff, but it's one of the things is that I try to preach to these guys, and I'm not saying preach as in the word of God, but preach saying, hey, counsel, yeah. I'm trying to say, hey guys, you got to have this. Right. And I go into these new orientations and say, look, this is what you're going to run into. This is what's going to happen. Because I've had people say to me, I went 4 years of school and I had no idea this was going to happen. I went and got my paramedic. I went and got my 4-year degree in emergency service science. And I had no idea that it was like this because I thought it was like it was on Chicago Fire. And I thought it was pretty cool. Right. And then they get here on the truck and it's like, holy crap, I got a gunshot victim with 3 different wounds and they're bleeding everywhere. And I don't know what to do. And I'm the paramedic and I got a basic sitting beside me. Yeah. And they're not yelling cut and going to the Levitra commercial. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's different when the rubber hits the road. Mm-hmm. You know, people see what happens on TV and it's TV. Yeah. But when real life stuff goes down, man, it's tough. Now, but there's other stuff that you guys do. There's a fundraising portion or right arm that you guys do. Talk about that a little bit. So, like I said, we're providing counseling services, chaplaincy services, and our biggest thing is financial crisis for first responders. And everybody knows that first responders don't make a lot of money.
Not at all.
And I'm not saying that we're, and especially the volunteers.
We have a big volunteer.
We have
fire department.
2,000 volunteer firefighters
In Iredell County.
In Iredell County.
They work 9 to 5 jobs, and if they're called out, they're at the fire, and they work as hard as any paid firefighter. They're amazing.
Well, we appreciate them and thank them. Thank you from here at States Vegas Radio and Appetite for Discussion for volunteering and helping people. It just, it's good to know that there's still good people out there. My uncle was a volunteer fireman for 30 years at least. Yeah, I think so. He doesn't do it anymore. He's older. Sorry, uncle. But he would talk about how tough it was on him. But anyway, so you guys were talking about the volunteer service and the fundraising.
So we do fundraising because I pay for everybody's counseling. I got 4 counselors that we use that are either used to be first responders or their spouses are first responders, whatever it may be. But the fundraising we do it is because if there's financial crisis, if they miss budget 1 month or 2 months and they say, hey, Andrew, look, I messed up. I done this and I shouldn't have, or I done this and I thought I had enough money to pay my power bill, but I'm really not going to have enough money to pay my power bill, and I don't want to get behind, or I don't want to have a delinquent on my policy or my bill that's going to go to the credit, whatever it may be. They can call us and say, hey, this is what's going on, and we'll review it. There's a committee that I sit down with, and we say, okay, this is what we got, this is what we're doing. And there are some people that have long-term illnesses that we help as well that are first responders, like best one I can talk about is because it's public knowledge is Deputy Chris Snow. So he's got MS and he's trying to get back to
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico. No.
Yeah.
Panama.
You're right.
For stem cell?
For stem cell treatment. So that's $30,000. We don't have $30,000 to give them, but we're helping them raise the money and do so on and so forth. But Hayden's going to talk about all the fundraisers that we're doing and why we do them for the things that we do them for.
Well, the first thing we have going on right now is the hats and horses that you're holding on to right here. Thank you. We have a hats and horses event coming on October 5th.
Okay.
It's going to be held out at Crawford Farms off of Cannon Road.
Is that in Statesville or Mooresville?
Statesville.
Okay.
And what it'll be is we're going to have live music, a prime rib dinner, drinks, and virtual horse racing, where you get to actually feel like you're at the Kentucky Derby, bet on your horses, and part of the proceeds go to the nonprofit. And you can also win a little bit too.
Oh, very nice.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. Tickets are $75 a seat. We have sponsorships available. If you're interested in it, please get in touch with us.
How can they get in touch with you if they want to be a sponsor?
They can either get in touch with us through the phone number of
704-450-0816. 704-450-0816.
We'll write those down, and I'll put them on the YouTube link, and I'll also a description and on the podcast description too.
Okay. And it's going to be a fun event. We're hoping we're going to have Brittany Snow out from Channel 9 News.
Brittany Johnson.
I'm messing up today. Good. All right, Brittany Johnson from Channel 9
Britney
News.
Spears
Sorry,
is going to be
Brittany, I
there.
didn't mean to mess that up. The other event we have going on right now is with Tilly Harley Davidson. We're raffling off 2 Harleys that the Tilly Harley has very nicely given to us at a good cost. And what it is you can buy 1 ticket for $20, but it gives you a chance to win 2 motorcycles. If you don't get drawn on the first draw, you have your second chance for the second draw.
All right.
1 bike is worth $12,800. The next bike is worth $11,300. We'll be drawing that on December 31st at Tilly Harley Davidson from 5 to 8. And hopefully we can get Terry out there to do the drawing for us. He's the general manager out there, I think.
Yep.
So for those who are motorcycle enthusiasts who listen, because there are a few of those, can you tell me what the 2 motorcycles are? Like a sports store
they
or
are a Model XL 1200.
Okay.
There is a blue one and a black one.
Okay.
But they're actually calling the black one, it's cherry color.
It's a cherry.
The reason that they called it black on this flyer that I have right here is because of the lettering on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's Sportsters, and I don't know nothing about motorcycles. I ain't never getting on a motorcycle, but you can buy some tickets. We will definitely give it to you. And when you win, all tax, title, and fees are paid for.
All tax, title, and fees are paid for.
You just drive off the first year.
So pick it up on January 1st and don't worry about it until December 31st.
Exactly.
Yep.
I used to have a motorcycle. I had to get that itch, that scratch it and get it out of my system. And man, I'll never forget, we were taking care of a guy who got T-boned, and unfortunately he didn't make it. And the ER doctor turned. I was still working in the emergency department at the time. She turned to me and she said, "Get rid of that damn bike."
Yep.
You know, and I was like, because unfortunately, this poor guy. I mean, he was literally in the shape of a C. You know, it was just a bad situation.
We have one more. We have a Quotes for Good, and that is being done by State Farm in Davidson. And if you call State Farm in Davidson, every time you call for a quote, they will donate $10 to First Responder Support Services.
Fantastic.
So that's for the whole month of September.
And say that again.
Davidson's State Farm. State Farm in Davidson.
State Farm in Davidson.
I don't have the number right now, and I should. I'm sorry. But
And by the way, motorcycle riders, I love you and I love motorcycles. I got it out of my system.
But you
Well,
can actually
I mean, I love them too. It's
I
just
do. They're awesome.
I'm too scared to ride one.
And that's okay.
I think
Yeah.
it's more scary to get on a bicycle, to be honest with you, than a motorcycle. But he rides bike all around, and I'm like, and there's cars, they don't even pay attention.
You know, that is something that's become more popular around here.
Well, you know, we got Crossroads Cycling Company downtown
Yep.
that moved in, and I buy all my stuff from them. Great group of guys. David, the owner, is actually a former police officer, and so I
did
try
not
to
know that.
support
Oh yeah.
first responders and all their businesses. We got so many first responders that have businesses outside of what they do. So,
But it's interesting you say that, because I would probably ride a motorcycle again before I would get a road bike and
I
ride.
would too.
Because I'm scared of, I just don't trust people on the road.
well, I can tell you, if you hit me,
You're hitting something big.
you're hitting something big, and it's going to be murder. Because I got enough lights on my bike to land a plane. I can tell you that. Hayden, do you want to tell them about why we're raising the money for the motorcycle?
The motorcycle money that we're raising right now, there's two parts to it. One part is we're going to be a care dog, therapy care dog. And it'll be named Jordan, and it will be used when we go into hospitals when we're doing
Crisis intervention.
thank you very much. Crisis intervention.
CISMs, critical incident stress management for first responders and stuff. What I've learned a lot in the last couple of years is when I go across the state, there's some teams that have crisis intervention dogs, and you will be surprised on how our first responders will be in there talking, or they won't talk as much, and then that dog comes in the room and just sits there in the middle of the floor. It'll walk up to a person that's stressed out, and they'll pet it, and they'll open right up, and they get a whole lot more healthy healing.
So this support dog would be, where would it stay?
He's gonna stay at my house. So
Okay.
it'll just be like me having a regular dog when he's at home, but when we're out and about, like every day, he's gonna come with me.
Okay.
So if I go visit Troutman Volunteer Fire Department, Jordan's going to come in the fire department with me, and he's going to hang out. And if he's going to be trained to sense if something's wrong with somebody or somebody's stressed out.
Yeah.
He's going to go up to them and pet them, and that might be a cue for me to open up and say, "Hey, man, what's going on?"
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Still goes through a lot of training, at least a year of training.
Yeah, he's in Charlotte right now getting trained, and so we went through a very extensive process before we picked the company that we picked. They're a nonprofit too, out of Charlotte. All Aspects Dog Training is their name, and we went through a very extensive process. The Veterans House uses them here in Iredell County. Purple Heart Homes, the VA hospital has multiple dogs from them. So,
What type of dog is it?
he's a Labradoodle,
A
hyperallergenic.
Labradoodle.
And
Perfect.
the reason we done that is because some people are allergic to dogs.
Absolutely.
And he's not going to be having dandruff flying all over the place, hair, nothing like that. He'll be a good dog for people to sit and just pet and love on, and he can love back on him. He's very hyper right now. He's going through a whole bunch of training, and then so after he gets done training, I have to go up there for a long time. So I go every Thursday right now.
Gotcha.
But after he gets done with all his training, I'll have to go back and spend almost like a month or two to get the training that I need to make sure that we're doing the right things with them.
Okay.
And the All Aspects Dog Handling has 3 dogs right now that they're trying to place too with veterans, and it's free.
It's free for veterans.
It's free for veterans. So they can, if there's a veteran that needs a dog and they're struggling, they can call All Aspects, or I can hook you up with them, and they do labs.
Mm-hmm.
So they have 3 labs that they're trying to get placed, and I'm telling you, I ain't never seen no dogs do the stuff that these dogs do, and Hayden can contest to it.
Yeah,
we had
they
one
are
dog
very
come
good.
out there, and unzipped a jacket and then zipped it back up, put the jacket on them. There's a dog that can call 911. I mean, they got all kinds of stuff. These ladies are mean in business.
Is it not amazing how someone can train an animal to do that? And I'm still trying to get my kids to pee in the potty.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, you can't
you know,
use a paper on a kid.
Yeah.
that's
Can't
true.
use that
They do
clicker
either,
toy.
but, yeah.
That's true. So now, are you the only? Are there other guys like you and your 4 others or 5 of you
So
total?
there's I have 5 chaplains that are volunteer chaplains, and I volunteer for the nonprofit as well. But so there's 5 chaplains, and then we have 4 counselors,
Yep.
and then we have volunteers like Hayden and our board members and stuff that come out to scenes like our fire scenes. Like if there's the asphalt plant, for example, I was out there from 6 o'clock that evening until 1:30, 2 o'clock that morning. So I had volunteer chaplains out there. Hayden brought more water out there. We had a couple other volunteers come out just bringing us stuff because there was so much stuff going on that we needed snacks, food, water, all kinds of stuff.
So are you the first in the state to develop this program?
So there's 2 other programs that I wouldn't even say touch mine, but there's the emergency chaplain group, and they do it for income base. They say, hey, if you pay us this much, we'll provide your chaplaincy services for you.
Okay.
And then there's First Responders First, which is in Concord, and they do kind of the same thing.
Right.
They say, if you give us X amount of dollars, we'll provide a chaplaincy service for you. And so the one in Durham's a little bigger than First Responders First in Concord. He's a nonprofit too, but he's a nonprofit. But yeah, so he's a great guy. He just doesn't have all the crisis intervention training like I do and like my other chaplains do. He's a chaplain ordained. He's got his MDiv, all that stuff. It's just he doesn't have all the crisis background.
I gotcha.
So I would say that we are the only one in the state that provides crisis chaplains, crisis intervention, as in counseling and financial crisis.
So how will you guys continue to grow? What does that look like? Like, what does the next 18 months to 2 years look like for you guys?
The next 18 months to 2 years, I would say, would be us in Iredell County getting more established. All the first responders know us, but our nonprofit is a business, so we have to have money to help these first responders. And I don't charge a single first responder a dime for anything that we do. If they call me and say, Andrew, I need you to pick me up from the airport because my wife had a wreck, I'm going to pick them up, and I'm not going to charge them an Uber fee, kind of thing.
But the money comes from the fundraising arm.
Fundraising.
There's
Right.
not anybody in our nonprofit, Andrew, or anybody that gets paid. Every dollar that comes into our organization goes back out to support first responders.
And I think that's something that's very important because I have a friend too who runs a nonprofit organization. And when people hear nonprofit, unfortunately, there's been so many people who've been dishonest and taken advantage of the title nonprofit that people kind of go, so they want to know where that money's going. And the fact that you guys don't take any money and it goes right back into what it's supposed to is important, and people need to know that.
Yeah, it's really difficult because Andrew and I joke about it, but I think there's like 30,000 nonprofits in the state of North Carolina, and I believe 29,000 of them are in Iredell County.
Yeah.
Because every time I go out trying to fundraise, it's like you're the 4th person that's walked in today, or you're the 5th person that's walked in today, and it's just it's hard to get funding. It's hard to get people that want to donate. There's hard to get sponsorships. Volunteers are very difficult to get nowadays. Even the fire departments. I've been talking to a firefighter who's a lieutenant, and he's like, it's changing. The world's changing. We can't just get these people that want to volunteer to do something right. And when they come in, they think, oh, well, I'm going to be a firefighter and just put on the uniform and you go out on a truck. Well, no, you have to go through the training. You have to learn how to do this. You have to learn how to do that. And that's what's being in a nonprofit. This nonprofit I'm proud of. I know for a fact where the money goes. I know what we do. I know what Andrew does. I know what his chaplains do. I get the opportunity to go out and work with the police officers and firefighters and see them do what they do, how they intervene or get involved with the firefighter or police officer. So I'm very proud of what I do. I just wish that I could get a better income for us. I wish it was. It's so hard. It really is.
So are you guys completely right now like individually funded, like just from people donating money, or do you have like a major sponsor at the moment?
We don't have any major sponsors, and I'll be honest with you. So the first year, it was hard.
Yeah.
I I put almost probably $2,000 in. I had a couple board members throwing money in it just so we could get our feet off the ground. And we had a major sponsor, and they were giving us $1,000 a month. Well, they went bankrupt. So it was one of those things where it was like, well, you can't be mad at them because they've ran out of money. Like, but I mean, they did, and
it's
it was
the competition's so hard,
and the
we're so young.
competition is
Sure.
hard.
And it's getting to realize we do have a good sponsorship for our upcoming event at Hats and Horses. Davis Hospital is really helping us out a lot. I'd like to have more. I'd like to have
Sure.
more people be involved. If you're interested, please get in contact with us. Go on Facebook, look at our website, get in touch with Andrew, get in touch with me. I am out and about all the time, and trust me, people see me around town all the time.
Do you guys have a Facebook page?
Mm-hmm.
And what's it called?
First Responder Support Services.
First Responder Support Service.
I'm messing
right.
up tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's First Responder Support Services. I think right now the logo is on there as the picture, or it's either the logo's on there as a picture, or it's me praying with a group of police officers in a blue shirt. I'm pretty sure. I don't know though. It's one of those two, but you'll see it. You can scroll down, and there's all of our events going on, all of our fundraisers that we're doing, and all the people that support us, like McDonald's, Iredell County McDonald's, and the Neaters are
Great.
huge supporters
Great.
of us.
Wonderful.
They get up at 2:00 in the morning and go out and start making hamburgers for us. Those
Yeah.
people are
wonderful.
phenomenal.
Thank you. Good.
Yes, thanks to the Neaters. I mean,
Yes.
we have so many supporters. Like I said, Piedmont helps with certain things, like when it comes to maybe I need somebody that needs to talk to a psychiatrist to get a medicine.
Yeah.
I can call the CEO of Piedmont and say, hey, look, this is what I got going on. Paramedic, firefighter, whoever it may be, can we get them in to see somebody? And, I mean, just as well as I know, when it goes to going to see a psychiatrist, you could have 6 months to a year because they're so slim to none.
Absolutely.
None when it comes to being a psychiatrist. So.
Well, it all depends too on insurance and how much you have to
Yep.
pay, and if they cover it, they take what they don't take.
Yep.
So, thank you guys so much for what you do. It is you guys are filling such a huge void that is needed for people, and I hope it continues to grow. And I hope more and more people every day find out about the services that you're offering, and I hope people listening today maybe have learned a little bit about what people who are on the front lines in emergency services go through and have to deal with, and they are heroes. And maybe future Councilman Hoke here can help with some funding for better pay for our emergency service. Where does that money come from, by the way? Who pays for it, the city or the county?
For what?
For EMS.
So for EMS, it comes from the county.
Comes from the county.
Yep, but there's taxes for every little thing. So, like, there's not a EMS tax, but there's a rescue and fire tax.
Yep.
So money could come from that rescue and fire tax, or the convalescent services that EMS provides, or like the city of Statesville, for example, has a fire tax. They have a fire district. Each department has fire districts and so on and so forth. So that's how their funding comes. But it would, and I hate to say we need to raise taxes for first responders, but we need to raise taxes for first responders. If it's a cent on the dollar, it's a cent on the dollar. I'm sorry, but that's just, I'm not a politician. I'm a Christian, and that's it. But I'm just saying.
Well, either that or take some of the tax money they're getting and put it towards something that is so important and probably one of the most important things in the county or the city.
Well, I like
that needs to be the priority. Those
Oh
guys,
yeah, I like to tell a lot of people when I go speak in front of groups is that, let's say you have an emergency and you call 911. You don't hear anybody answer the phone, right? Because there's no more telecommunicators. There's no more police officers. There's no more firefighters. There's nothing. But if you call 911 right now, you know that somebody is guaranteed to answer that phone, regardless. It could be a horrible storm going on right now in Iredell County, and that phone will pick up no matter what it is. You might hear my voice on there, and it's a bad day if you hear my voice, but somebody will pick up that phone.
Right.
So that's the thing.
It's important to know, too. Well, you know people. You can talk to people. Make it happen.
Yeah, I'm making it.
That's right. Make it happen. So, again, tell everybody how they can find out more information about you guys.
First Responder Support Services. You go on the Facebook page. Our website's under construction right now. So you go on our Facebook page, like us, shoot us a message. My name's Andrew Donawa. I got a personal Facebook page. Shoot me a message on there. You can you can call us at 704-450-0816, 704-450-0816. There, shoot me a text, whatever it is. If you're calling me and I don't answer the phone call back and I know it's an emergency and I usually pick up. So
And they can find out how to donate to the cause too, right?
yes,
To the nonprofit.
that's the big
I'm
thing.
on the Facebook page too.
You're on the Facebook
Hayden's
page?
on there. We're all on there. Sometimes it's a little harder to get in contact with me just because of me visiting first responders every day or doing some type of crisis with a first responder throughout the state. So just give us a phone call or a text or whatever it may be, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But we need donations. And come to the ball. This is going to be the event
Buy a
of the
motorcycle.
year.
Ticket.
Right, buy a ticket,
Yeah.
and it's called Hats and Horses,
Hats
right?
and horses
Horses.
And
for first
also
responders.
buy that raffle ticket. And thank you to Tilly Hard Davidson for providing those 2 motorcycles.
And they have tickets at their store that they will sell you
Well, you know, everybody needs a new Harley, especially for $20,
Yeah.
for 20
or
bucks.
for 2 new Harleys,
Actually,
his and
if you
hers.
bought 2 tickets for $40, you could actually win both motorcycles.
Boom.
Boom.
So one.
Drop the mic.
done.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you guys coming in again. Thank you so much for what you're doing. You guys are helping out so much, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to also say thank you to States Vegas Radio. Thank you to States Vegas Clothing Company for providing me with all my shirts this season. Thank you to Dutch McCurry Law. Thank you to kasey.tate at Farm Bureau. Oops. At Farm Bureau Insurance, and to Black Flag Holster Company. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.